But for Kofi, life had become a struggle. He was left to pick up the pieces and care for their children alone. Despite the challenges, he refused to give up. He continued working hard, determined to provide a better life for his kids. Within a few months, Kofi's hard work paid off. He managed to get himself a taxi and started a new business, providing transportation for school kids to and from school. It was a small step towards rebuilding their lives, but Kofi was determined to make a better future for his children. He decided to reach out to Attica, hoping to reconcile and start anew. "Babe, I bought our first taxi," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "Please come back. Things are going to get better from now on. The kids miss you. I miss you. We can start again." But Attica's response was harsh and unforgiving. She hurled cruel words at Kofi, leaving him feeling devastated and defeated. He vowed never to contact her again, realizing that she had changed into someone he no longer recognized. Attica, on the other hand, was living a life of luxury and excess. She flew on private jets, shopped in the most expensive stores, and traveled the world. She had grown to love Chief Abba, but she couldn't understand why he refused to leave Lisa's house. He remained locked in his room, and Attica was content to let him be, as long as the money kept flowing. A year passed, and Kofi's life began to heal. He met a beautiful woman named Rose, who was humble, loving, and kind. She adored his children, and they quickly grew to love her. Kofi took his time getting to know Rose, wary of rushing into another relationship. But as they spent more time together, he realized that he had found a true partner. Rose became the mother figure the children had been missing, and Kofi found himself falling deeply in love with her. After a whirlwind romance, they decided to get married, surrounded by their friends and family. As they exchanged their vows, Kofi knew that he had finally found his happily ever after. Back at Lisa's mansion, Chief Abba had grown tired of Attica and was craving something new. Lisa and Zubby, desperate to maintain their luxurious lifestyle, began searching for a fresh plaything to satiate the chief's desires. They would stop at nothing to keep their wealth. Unbeknownst to Attica, her next visit to Chief Abba would be her last. She was met with a cold, rude version of the man she had grown accustomed to. "What happened, my king?" she asked, concern etched on her face. "Your time is up," Chief Abba thundered. "Please leave and don't ever come back here again." Attica, scared and humiliated, scurried out of the mansion. She immediately called Lisa, confiding in her about the sudden rejection. Lisa reassured her that everything would be fine, advising her to give Chief Abba some space. Attica returned to her apartment, but the feeling of unease lingered. As she lay in bed, scrolling through Instagram, she stumbled upon Rose's wedding pictures with Kofi. Her heart sank, and a pang of jealousy hit her. She hadn't expected Kofi to move on with someone new, someone better. In a fit of rage, Attica decided to text Kofi. "So you went on and got married already. You are pathetic," she wrote, her fingers flying across the screen. But the text bounced back, indicating she was blocked. Attica's anger and hurt simmered for months as she tried to reach Chief Abba, but he remained unreachable. Lisa, too, had been ignoring her calls, leaving Attica feeling isolated and alone. Her physical health began to deteriorate, and she lost weight drastically. Desperate for answers, Attica visited the hospital, where a battery of tests was conducted. The doctor's expression was somber as he delivered the news. "Being HIV positive is not the end," he began. Attica's impatience boiled over. "Please, can you just tell me what's wrong? I never had many sexual partners, so let's skip the HIV part." The doctor's expression turned sympathetic. "I'm sorry, but you are HIV positive." Tears flooded Attica's eyes as she let out a heart-wrenching sob. "It's Kofi, my ex-husband. He did this to me," she cried, her body shaking with anguish. The doctor advised her to start her medication immediately, but Attica's mind was already racing with thoughts of revenge. She stormed out of the hospital, determined to confront Kofi. When she arrived at Kofi's house, she was met with a shocking discovery. The house was occupied by new tenants. Attica's anger turned frustration as she asked for Kofi's new address, but the tenants had no idea. Attica returned to her apartment, feeling defeated and alone. Her life had taken a devastating turn, and she was left to pick up the pieces. Attica's reckless spending had left her with nothing. She had never thought of saving or investing in a business, and now she was paying the price. Alone, jobless, and penniless, she spent her days stalking Rose's Instagram, seething with jealousy. Rose's perfect life with Kofi and the kids was a constant reminder of what Attica had lost. She's living my life, Attica thought, her mind consumed by sinister thoughts. The darkness closed in around her as she sat in her room, surrounded by the remnants of her failed life. With 2 months rent overdue and no food in the fridge, Attica's situation was dire. She had stopped taking her medication, and her health was deteriorating rapidly. The threat of homelessness loomed over her, and Attica's desperation turned to rage. I won't suffer while Rose lives my life, she thought, her eyes blazing with resentment. Just then, Lisa dropped by for a visit, and her eyes widened in shock at Attica's frail and pale appearance. Attica's anger boiled over, and she screamed at Lisa like a madwoman. You ruined my life. Lisa's expression turned mocking. I didn't, you did. You left your man of your own free will. No one forced you. Zubby and I were once poor, but I stuck by him until we made it. I can't say the same for you. Attica's eyes filled with tears as she stared at Lisa, the girl she once admired. Attica's voice pierced the air like a dagger, her words dripping with venom. You are evil. I hate you, she shrieked, her eyes blazing with fury. Lisa, seemingly unfazed, turned her back and walked away, leaving Attica's anger to simmer. Meanwhile, in a cozy home, Kofi sat with his children, Junior and Chioma, while Rose busied herself in the kitchen. The aroma of cooking food wafted through the air, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. Do you guys ever think about your mother, Attica? Kofi asked, his voice tinged with a mix of sadness and curiosity. Junior looked up at his father, his eyes thoughtful. I barely remember Mama, he said. I was young when she left us, but I don't think of her much. I have Mama Rose, and I love her. Kofi nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude for the love and care Rose had brought into their lives. He glanced at Chioma, who was too young to remember her biological mother. Little did he know, their lives were about to take a dramatic turn. The next day, the family decided to spend the day shopping at the mall. The kids were bubbling with excitement, and Kofi couldn't help but smile proudly. He had always dreamed of being able to provide for his family, and now he could finally afford to give them the life they deserved. As they prepared to head back home, their car was suddenly interrupted by a frantic knocking on the window. Open up, Kofi, my husband, a shrill voice cried out. Kofi's eyes narrowed as he stepped out of the car to confront the commotion. A disheveled woman stood before him, her eyes wild and her hair unkempt. What's wrong with you? Kofi yelled, his patience wearing thin. The woman's gaze locked onto Kofi's, her eyes pleading. It's me, Attica, your wife, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Kofi's eyes widened in shock, his mind reeling with the implications. Kofi's eyes widened in shock as he stumbled backward, his mind reeling with the sudden revelation. What? Attica? He stuttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Attica's face lit up with a manic grin. Yes, baby, it's me, she exclaimed, her eyes darting wildly around the car as she walked around it, admiring it with an unsettling intensity. Wow, we made it, she muttered to herself, her voice dripping with a sinister tone. Rose, sensing the tension, got out of the car, her eyes fixed on Kofi with concern. Kofi, my love, what's happening? Who is this woman? She asked, her voice laced with uncertainty. Kofi held Rose's hand, his eyes never leaving Attica's face. That's Attica, the woman who left me and abandoned her kids, he explained, his voice firm but laced with a hint of sadness. Attica, this is Rose, my beautiful wife. Rose's eyes darted at Attica, her expression polite but wary. Oh, nice meeting you, Attica, she said, her voice tentative. Attica's face darkened, her eyes blazing with malevolent intensity. You can never replace me, she hissed, her voice venomous. I'm back for my family. Kofi chuckled, a cold glint in his eye. You're too late, Attica. I've moved on and I'm happy. With that, he got back into the car with Rose, leaving Attica seething with rage. Without warning, Attica jumped onto the car, her fists pounding against the windshield as she drew attention from passers-by. "Don't leave me, Kofi. I want my family back," she yelled, her voice like a wild animal. Kofi's expression turned grim as he started the engine and drove off, determined to protect his family from Attica's toxic presence. As they arrived home, Rose turned to Kofi, her eyes filled with concern. "What happened to her?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kofi shook his head, his expression somber. "I don't know. I'm equally surprised," he replied, his eyes scanning the room as if searching for answers. But before they could process the events of the day, Attica burst into the house, a knife glinting in her hand, her eyes blazing with a deadly intensity. "Get out of my house!" Attica yelled, her voice shrill and menacing as she pointed the knife at Rose. Kofi's eyes widened in alarm as he jumped to his feet. "Attica, are you crazy?" he exclaimed, trying to reason with her. Attica's gaze snapped to Kofi, her eyes blazing with a fierce intensity. "Shut up! Just shut up!" she spat, her voice venomous. She turned back to Kofi, her expression softening into a twisted smile. "You promised me a good life, vacations, expensive gifts, and all the lavish things money can buy. I'm here for it all, baby. I'm back. Let's start over." Kofi's eyes narrowed as he studied Attica's behavior. Something was definitely wrong with her. Mentally, emotionally, she was unhinged. He decided to play along, hoping to defuse the situation. "Okay, I hear you. Rose will leave, and we can start afresh, okay?" he said, trying to reach for the knife. Attica's face lit up with tears, and she nodded, seemingly convinced that Kofi had forgiven her. Kofi winked at Rose, gesturing for her to call for help. Rose, reading between the lines, quickly rushed the phone and dialed the police. As they waited for the authorities to arrive, Attica's demeanor changed, her voice taking on a calm, almost serene quality. "I want to see my babies. Where are they?" she asked, sitting beside Kofi. "They've gone to bed. You'll see them tomorrow," Kofi replied, trying to placate her. Attica smiled, her eyes fixed on Kofi. But before she could say anything else, a knock at the door interrupted them. "Who is it?" Attica asked Kofi, her voice laced with a hint of paranoia. "I don't know, I'll check," Kofi said, standing up to investigate the knock at the door. But before he could take a step, Attica's demeanor changed, her eyes widening in alarm. "No, where is Rose?" She jumped up, her voice rising to a frantic pitch. "Where is she?" she yelled, her gaze darting wildly around the room. Rose, sensing Attica's escalating agitation, trembled as she replied, "I'm here. I'm still packing." Just then, the police burst into the room, kicking the door open. "It's her!" Rose screamed, pointing at Attica. "She came in with a knife, threatening us." The police swiftly moved in, cuffing Attica as she struggled and screamed like a wild animal. "She's living my life!" Attica shrieked, her eyes blazing with crazed intensity. "She took my man and kids." Kofi and Rose watched in stunned silence as Attica was dragged away, her cries echoing through the night. They retreated to their bedroom, lost in thought, their minds reeling with the what-ifs of the terrifying ordeal. Meanwhile, Attica sat alone in a stark, white room, her mutterings the only sound in the eerie silence. "I'm not mad. I'm not mad. She's living my life," she mumbled, her words trailing off into the void as she succumbed to the darkness of her own mind. As the days passed, Attica's mental state continued to deteriorate. She was diagnosed with severe schizophrenia and was institutionalized for her own safety. Kofi and Rose, finally free from Attica's toxic grasp, began to rebuild their lives. They focused on raising their children, and their love for each other only grew stronger. Years later, as they sat on their porch, watching their children play, Kofi turned to Rose and smiled. "We made it," he said, his eyes shining with gratitude. "We survived the storm." Rose smiled back, her eyes filled with love. "We did," she said, "and we're stronger because of it." As the sun set on their happy family, Attica's distant screams echoed through the institution's walls, a haunting reminder of the chaos she had once brought into their lives. But for Kofi and Rose, there was only peace, love, and a bright future ahead. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned for our next story.